Yeah, Z2 is too big to be on just one CD, and we already talked about the Devin Townsend project, half of this, which was, of course, entitled Sky Blue. Now it's time to get into the ZILTOID portion, the really the main event, what everyone's been waiting for. Probably the disc that you guys listened to first. It's called Dark Matters, and Z2 Dark Matters really has been sort of forecast and foreshadowed by saying that it's ZILTOID literally against the world. And this is a storyline that I don't really want to say too much about. I really would like to have you figure this out for yourself and kind of go through the storyline on your own. However, we do get in a couple of introductions here. We get the introduction to the War Princess, who is actually her vocal duties is handled by the lead singer of Stolen Babies, which is awesome. And we have Captain Spectacular, who is handled by Fozzy himself, Chris Jericho. And we also have the Poozers. The Poozers are by far the most funny tongue-in-cheek thing I've seen and heard in a while, perhaps ever since Deconstruction from Devin Townsend. First off, the word Poozer reminds me of poodle and poser. They sound like Beaker, and whenever they get a translator, they sound like a bellowing, huge threat. Yet whenever you hear them just in their own, voice, they sound as though they're little mini Beaker, almost like if you saw Beaker right in front of you, this was a Beaker at like 1/1000th scale that was just looking up at the big one like me, and then you get like an army of those, and it's kind of a threat, kind of like an army of darkness with a little tiny ashes, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, Z2. Like the last album, there's a lot to do with coffee on here. Coffee plays a role. Coffee does play a role. And there is a huge war. This album reads a lot like a sci-fi movie. Not just like a sci-fi novel, but also like a movie. It's a very cinematic experience based around the fact that there is the musical score behind it. This is almost like what would happen if you went to see a movie and all that there was audio, that perhaps something happened to the actual footage of the film, the video footage of the film, and you just had the audio. And the funny part about it is that the narrative here has been designed to the point where it is still insanely entertaining. It really maintains itself, and really, in a way, with the whole metal opera idea, it's an idea that really could easily be taken to the screen, and no doubt will be. There are plans for ZILTOID to go further than just musical, and it's so tongue-in-cheek. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek that Devin Townsend is able to really introduce onto this album, a lot more than what he was able to do with the first ZILTOID album about 8 years ago. So without really getting too deep into the plot, ZILTOID is being kind of revered a little bit on Earth ever since their previous encounter, because he is a foreign body. He is something that's completely different. He's an alien to them. And it's kind of strange. One thing that I will say is that based on some events that do happen in the first portion of this record, that really flip-flops very quickly. He goes from beloved to hated very quickly based around one thing that happened that actually had a little bit of something to do with him, but not really. It was just based off of a decision, based off something that happened to him, blah, blah, blah. I'm really getting a little bit too close for comfort to spoilers. And it really kind of made me think of a lot of things. It's a great metaphor for how very quickly we turn on individuals. And it's also kind of a movie cliche of how quickly people are turned on in movies based around a decision that maybe they had no part in making or was out of their control, but everybody blames them anyway. It's a little cartoony in a way, but it's a formula that always works because it always just kind of, it drags out a little bit of sympathy for you, but at the same time you kind of laugh because aren't we kind of like that as humans? Don't we really jump the gun? And this is a great parody of that. The music on this is phenomenal, and the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra, tongue-in-cheek here, handles a lot of the orchestral elements of this album. There are strings, there are violins, there's a flute, there's all sorts of great music to really accompany this. It has that big movie score feel to it, almost as though a sci-fi film was given an obnoxious budget. And it all went to the audio element. It all went to the soundtrack of this. Really have to give a huge shout out to March of the Poozers, which by description alone makes me think of Beaker in a bunch of AT-ATs from Star Wars. It's just hysterical to me. The storyline borders on cliche and ridiculous at times, and the thing of it is that it acknowledges that it is. It acknowledges that it's a bit cliche, that it's a bit sappy, it's a bit corny. And that's Devin's personality just bleeding out onto this, and I really... He's such a likable guy based around that. He's a guy that has this serious project going on, that has a serious story behind it, but yet he introduces all of this tongue-in-cheek element, and then straight up says, you know, this is ridiculous to himself, almost as though that's what happened in his head, and whenever he was dreaming this up, and it just made so much sense to put it in there. The narrator says, why am I talking to myself in this? They're breaking the fourth wall, and it's a lovely experience. It really is. And the best part about it is that it ends with a teaser that more Ziltoid is happening. There have been rumors about potentially a form of like a television series or some televised media that will have some video to accompany it, and some other things that may happen. And I would not be shocked if we saw a Z3. I would love to see a Z3. I would love to hear a Z3. This was a tremendous experience. The music that's on here, yes, the lyricism is really only being used to kind of advance the plot. It's something that's a little bit more minimal than what you would hear on, or what you heard rather, on Sky Blue. But it advances the plot. It does exactly what it needs to do. And the mood is really what's captured here. It's captured by the music itself. It's able to really use the chaos in order to really showcase the battles that are going on, or the travel that is taking place interdimensionally through wormholes. There's a lot of great atmosphere that is provided solely by music, and with the orchestral element, the choir idea behind it as well. It's just it's a trademark experience. It's a trademark experience. If you love the first Ziltoid, this is a little more story-based, but it's just as good, if not better. Devin has outdone himself with this album, and it's going to really be, at the end of the day, probably on a lot of album of the year lists. Maybe not the top spot, but it's definitely going to be in the top 5. Principally because I give this a 93 out of 100. This is a tremendous work. Just so much fun to listen to, and that's the thing. You can say that something was enjoyable, but how many times can you truthfully state that you had fun listening to an album? And I don't mean fun as in this was a great time, I headbanged, we use words like brutal maybe to mean fun. But truthfully, this was fun. This was like being a kid in a candy store and your mom tells you, here's 20 bucks, get as much as you can. And this is not Halloween. And you know that whenever you go out on Halloween, you're going to get more, so you're just, fuck, there's a lot of candy. So much goddamn candy. There's no candy corn. Corn that tastes like candy, imagine that. But yeah, and whenever you add that score together to what we had for Sky Blue, the album comes in at a solid, 88, but I'm going to give it an 89. I'm actually going to bump it up to an 89 out of 100. As a 2-disc edition, having 2 very different ideas presented, this really works very well. This works beautifully. In fact, this is what I would consider to be the Hitchhiker's Guide to Devin Townsend as a musician, as a solo musician. This is the Hitchhiker's Guide to Devin Townsend. On the first album, on Sky Blue, you got all of his sides, and then on the second part, on Dark Matters, the Ziltoid part, you got one of the most important sides that he's going to have going on for him, and has for something that he's very well known for. The concept album of an alien who originally came to Earth in search of coffee. This is the Hitchhiker's Guide to Devin Townsend, Z2. I feel that it's perfect. I feel that this album is wonderful. Share your reactions of both of these albums on both of the videos. And what did you think of this experience? Did it live up to your expectations? Were you let down? I don't think you were. But let me know. We bid Ziltoid farewell for another short spell. However long it is, we don't know. But damn. Chapter 2. Rock the fuck on, Devin. Great work.